Now, today marks 50 years since Margaret Thatcher became the leader of the Conservative Party. She was known as the Iron Lady, and she went on to become the nation's first female leader, winning 3 general elections. But will she always be remembered as a milk snatcher or for ripping apart the mining communities? Well, joining us now to discuss her legacy is former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Nigel Gardiner. Niall, thank you so much for joining us from the United States. You knew Thatcher well. What do you think she would think of the current state of Britain?
Well, great to see you, Miriam. Many thanks for having me on the show today. And I think that my former boss, Margaret Thatcher, would have been really appalled by the current state of Britain. And you have a far-left socialist government headed by Keir Starmer, who frankly is a complete charlatan, I think, as Prime Minister. And I think she would have been absolutely horrified by the fact that you now have probably the most left-wing government in British history heading the country. And she would have called on Conservatives in the United Kingdom to really to stand up to socialist tyranny. And she would have urged the British people to really to fight for their freedom at this time. And unfortunately, we do have a disastrous British government that is humiliating Britain on the international stage. And her message would have been loud and clear that Conservatives have to fight for conservative principles, ideals, and for the foundations of liberty and freedom. And we're seeing all of those being trampled upon by the socialists in charge of Britain at this time.
Of course, many people would credit Thatcher for the opening up and the restoration of the UK economy in the 1980s, and we did have a period of growth. But there was also a legacy that was perhaps not so positive, particularly in the north, closing down of industry, a legacy that perhaps still survives today. Do you think there are aspects of her policies that, were she alive today, she would have regretted?
I don't think so. I think with Margaret Thatcher, she always stood on her record, her principles, and I think she would never have backed down in terms of her policies. And she was very much of the view that Britain needed to be great again, really. And she restored British greatness on the international stage, made Britain competitive, and she stood up to the Stalinist left, actually, and she really saved Britain, I think, from socialist tyranny. It's unfortunate that we've seen the socialists return to power now, and I think that Keir Starmer's Labour Party is just as bad, frankly, as the 1970s socialists who are destroying Britain. But she restored, I think, confidence once again in the British nation. She demonstrated that clearly, of course, with the Falklands War and the great victory over Argentina. And she put pride back, I think, into the British spirit, really. And we greatly need to see that sense of self-confidence returning to the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, I think that the state of Britain today is absolutely horrendous. And the socialists will try to destroy everything. They did so in the 1970s. They're doing so again today. And Britain needs to be liberated once again from the spectre of socialist tyranny, frankly.
I think what's striking, watching videos of Thatcher now, speaking 40, 50 years ago. I mean, I was born during her premiership, but I was only 7, I think, when she left office, so I don't really remember her speaking at the time. But I think what strikes me is just how confident, how articulate, how bold she was, and that kind of extraordinary authority that she carried, even in a parliament that back then had hardly any female MPs. She was facing a wall of male MPs there. But she didn't have an easy start, did she? And there was certainly a couple of years after she'd been elected as leader that a lot of the Conservative Party thought that she wouldn't last. What advice do you think she'd give Kemi Badenoch now, who's also facing an uphill struggle for different reasons?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, Margaret Thatcher faced huge opposition from what was then the establishment of the Conservative Party, including a lot of wets. And I think that the fact that the Conservatives are trailing so heavily in the polls today has much to do with the fact that in recent years you've had wets in the Conservative Party who have tried to undermine Margaret Thatcher's legacy and vision. I think her advice to Kemi Badenoch and the new leadership of the Conservative Party is to stand firm on conservative principles. And the Conservative Party has to stand clearly for conservative values. And that, of course, includes limited government, low taxes, secure borders. And the Conservatives really have to, I think, regain that Thatcherite spirit, which they certainly lost under Rishi Sunak. I think Sunak's premiership was absolutely disastrous for the.
Niall, one of the things that she was known for was really pushing into the special relationship with the United States, that famous friendship with her and Reagan. What do you think she would think of the state of that special relationship now, particularly with it under strain over the Chagos Island deals and potentially tariffs as well from the Trump government?
Yeah, I think she would have been greatly saddened by the current state of the special relationship because it is fundamentally broken under Keir Starmer. And this is the responsibility of the Labour government here. In the United States, you have a very pro-British president with Donald Trump, who really wants a very powerful special relationship, but you have a useless Labour Party in charge in the UK at this time. And what the Socialists are doing with regard to the Chagos Islands is an absolute abomination, giving away sovereign British territory, really as a gift, frankly, to communist China, undermining the future of the vital US military base at Diego Garcia. And what Labour is doing here is they're fundamentally destroying the US-UK special relationship, which is really the beating heart of the free world. And Margaret Thatcher greatly loved the United States, the American people. She was a firm believer in the importance of the special relationship, but Keir Starmer has set the special relationship on fire at this time, trying to destroy it. And I think that what Starmer's doing is so incredibly dangerous. And what he's doing with regard to the Chagos Islands is absolute treason, really, traitorous, handing a huge gift to communist China.
Of course. Now, of course, we've yet to see whether or not that deal will go ahead and what Donald Trump will do, if anything, about it. But, of course, some would say that the imposing tariffs on Britain, for example, might also be threatening the special relationship.
Well, I think that thanks to Brexit, actually, the UK will avoid US tariffs. And it's important that the US and the UK move forward with a trade agreement. And I hope that Keir Starmer actually wakes up to the importance of a US-UK trade deal. I think certainly the Americans want to do a deal.
No, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. But Nigel Gardiner, thank you so much for joining us on this 50th anniversary of Thatcher being elected as leader. Now, if, like Thatcher, you've had enough of the wets and want some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.